We're up and live. We've said what we like about this is the grey colouring and the contrast of warm against cool. So let's see if we can get a wash on and sort of get that that form of mix. All right, I'll take you across now to the setup. There we go. Hopefully now you can see the palette as well today, because we've got a vertical format which sort of sits nicely. So let's take a look at how we're going to achieve this. All right, I get some tissue and let's just drop some nice colours through this. We can make the greys in many ways, can't we? We could make it with palette muck, we could make it with a bluish and a red, or a blue and an orange, or you can make a grey with any three colours. But let's have a look. I don't think there's any light paper, any white paper. So let's come down. Let's come down generous. People always ask me, why do you only wet half the paper? I don't know really, because I may as well wet it all, but I think it's just less finicky, and I prefer to bring the bead down, because if you want, you can cut around things with a bead. So I think that's why I bring it down in that sense. Let's put a nice bluish sky up and just spread it through nice and evenly. I might go into a cerulean lower down just to try and get that sky to go a bit gradated. All right, there we are, nice and simple. Let's keep the sky simple. I know it's not a popular word now, but I want this painting to be quite pretty. Right, let's start dropping some colours in. Dare we do the tower? I don't know. I need to get some blue. I've just had a little thought there, look. I need to get some blue in there through the gap. There we are. I think I'm going to leave the tower because the danger is it'll well outwards. However, I'm going to put a bit of raw sienna with a bit of red up here. That's not bad actually, is it? Raw sienna it was, and a bit of sendile or something red. I put that too near the edge. You bet your life that's going to well out. Look, because it's welled out there. What a nuisance. I should have tucked it right back there. But we'll live with that. Or I can flood some blue against it. It's not too strong, I'm going to live with that. But see how it travels? Now, we're getting into the more blues here, which I like. So let's try and mix it on the paper, is it? I'm going to get some cerulean. And I'm going to put some cerulean all through here. All right, I don't think it'll climb too much, so I'm quite safe to put it through here. All right, and I want it to be grey. So let's try and mix with that cerulean. Let's try and mix. I haven't got any violets in this palette. I've got one ultramarine violet there. So let's put a little bit of ultramarine violet with it. It looks quite violety there. And mix it in there. Right, I'm just random. I want this to be nice and a riot of colour, you know. Right, now let's go for the greying of it. Let's go for the greying of it with some burnt sienna. Not too strong, look. Let's try it gently first. And where's it warm? It's warm up there. And let's mix it in there. You see it just grey in that back? It's pretty shiny where you are, right? But where I am, I can still sort of see it. And that's not too strong. If I made it too strong, it would just go quite warm. And I do want it to be a sort of bluer, a bluer warmth. There's some raw sienna up here, I can see a little bit. So I'm just putting a little bit of warmth, nice warm bit of raw sienna there as well into the mix. This is very grey. See, it's lovely, isn't it? These first sort of mixes, how you can just sort of let them mix and mash. Look at this. This might do for the road. Let's just spread this through. Yeah, that's very pale, isn't it? And that's what we want with that road. I think somewhat by default. See if I can get rid of that little gap. I think somewhat by default, I find myself having completed the first wash. See, the grey has a better view of it, doesn't it? So I've got a very bluey grey there. There's going to be a second wash on that, all right? So we're going to have to amend it anyway. I can just see there's a little climber plant thing on there. Maybe I should put those in for us before I knock off. Hang on. Let's get some brightish yellow-green. I got some to hand here in the top of the palette. And let's just put a little bit of greenery up there because that'll be a nice contrast. Look at that. And there's some through here we can use. Just in case I need it. So that was quite a simple first wash. What's new, I suppose, is we're trying to mix our greys on the paper. You don't have to. You can mix them in the palette if you want, but you can see the palette's got no real grey in it. I've chosen to mix it on the paper. And I achieved that by some cerulean blue and then dropping some burnt sienna in it after I put some violets in it to give it some alternative colours. This was just a raw sienna with a bit of sundial red or something, but it almost looks like a burnt sienna, doesn't it? And the ground, I've left just off-white paper. All right, so get that stage completed then. So the overall wash is on and it's dried, just about, we hope. What I like to do in a painting like this is before going on to work it up, it's always nice to cover the white paper. So therefore, I think we need to put this tower in, and I think we need to put the roof in. And because I've got myself all tied up in the format of lesson I was going to give you, I forgot to add some greenery there for the grass. We don't need to do that right now, but that's something we need to do. So let's get a wash ready for this. It seems to me to be raw sienna based, but it's quite warm with reddish tints, isn't it? So let's get ourselves a puddle going, which we have here, and I can make it mainly raw sienna. There it is. We're going to have to glaze this because it's in shadow, but let's just get the wash on for now. And I can adjust that with bits of the red, bits of the violet as I travel, all right? The top to me seems slightly bluer, so I'm just going to start there. Let's have a look. That's very much bluer, but it'll do for a start. Let me bring you in so you can see the painting. And be safe in the knowledge that I'm going to adjust this quite soon. So I'm going to take that paint off it, go into my raw sienna, and of course this bead will mingle with the raw sienna, so it won't change colour immediately, will it? There we are. And can you see how the cerulean has settled out? It's quite a heavy pigment, isn't it? I want that to go a little bit more orangey, so I'm going to introduce a little spark of red to it and see if that gives me enough of that. A little bit too orangey, so mix it into my puddle. See, I'm just adjusting the puddle as I go. See how it's a half mixed puddle? But it is a puddle, isn't it? Let's come round through here. I think I need to put a little bit more raw sienna. Avoid that because the sky needs to peek through. There. I just want this to be reasonably varied. It's got to have a glaze over it to darken it, hasn't it? And I'm going to make it a little bit bluer again across here because it's slightly different stonework. And it all helps with that variety. That in painting, of course, is the spice of life. Back into the original wash now, and I can bring this down through. There. I haven't got a bead, so let's finish off quickly. Right, and you can paint without a bead, but by heck you need to paint fast because it's got to go on in one wet state. I'm happy with that. That's on. I'm going to leave a tiny gap and get some sort of burnt umber into the corner of this wash. Burnt umber is the sort of brown, you know, and just touch it into that wash, into the corner of the wash. You hardly saw that. And I'm just going to paint this little roof. If I touch that, it doesn't matter. It's not the end of the world. I want that a little bit lighter, because at the end of the day, you know, I want these grey walls to be darker than this roof. So I really do need to put some water with that to get it just lightly tinted. That's a bit better. Let's run it up through here a bit. I could now go down and put this greenery in. And let's say I wanted this, it's not that green actually, it's quite parched. And let's say I wanted this to look like it was part of the first wash, to look like I hadn't forgotten it. All right? Well, that's quite easy. I just put water around it, generously. All right? So I just put a generous amount of water around it. Try not to scrub. And then I get the greenery, yellow, bit of the blue. And in fact, I put some raw sienna in this as well because it's not, as we said, that green really. And all I need to do, look, see? So it looks like it's all soft edged. And I can get away then, hopefully, with tricking the viewer into thinking that this was a first wash. There we are. So we've got some hard edges coming in now on the tower, which looks out of place at the moment. It's overtly strong, but that's because we've got second washes to go elsewhere. And we've placed the tower, which was a raw sienna, touch of red, a little touch of actually cerulean into it as well to grade off a bit. And we did the roof with this very pale sort of umber. And then we've re-registered the greens by dampening and putting it in wet into wet. And we're now ready, once this dries, for the next stage. So we're in, and really this should have been the two washes, the overall wash, and then I've gone on to the tower. We're going to have to claim another edge here as well. This is in the sun, and yet I don't want to plaster it there for a second wash. And yet what's actually happened is this is £300 paper. And as this got saturated, it's bowed upward. And the water's run down and actually pushed the wash back. Do you remember I was fearing the wash welling out? If it had been stretched paper, that wash would have probably welled out. But because it's £300, it hasn't cockled, it's just bowed. So the water has run back into there. Either way, this would have been a soft edge. And either way, we need to secure an edge there. All right? But we don't want it to be heavy and dark. Lighter than that, because this is going to be in shade anyway. So I can use very probably the same wash, but I might have to put a bit more water with it, okay? And I want to dissipate that wash as soon as I can, because I can use the dark against light there, you see. So let's just get some water on the brush. This should take seconds. Water on the brush into this light wash. Let's have a look what we've got. Yep, that's about light enough just to give me an edge here. Breathe and draw. Whoops. Lucky they're old buildings, eh? Is that strong enough edge? Yes. And as soon as I get that edge, because there's a shadow going under here anyway, so I can live with that, I can add some more clean water and just drop this away. Now, because that's a pathetic little wash, I should do something else, I feel. But you know what? I won't, because we're going to have to start working things up after this. So let's pause for a very quick little wash. And all you're after is that edge. And then we can start then putting some sort of real statements into this picture. Right. We're making slow progress on this because often with these building things, there's so many little shapes to do. So I'm eager, and the way I paint these is non-stop. Normally you paint in a stage, you let it dry, you paint in a pass, you know, let it dry. But on these, I tend to jump about where there's wet areas. So now I've noticed that this is darker than this little beige wall here. So I want to put this little beige wall in, and then, is this dry? No. And then maybe I'll put something over that, a glaze over the tower. But we've got to keep jumping about. Otherwise, I'll be on and off the record button like anything here. So let's just put a little bit of shadow. Violet, ultramarine violet with raw sienna. I don't want it super duper duper dark because I want to leave room for this face to be darker than. All right. So I can go up under here, and hopefully this will represent a shadow. All right, I'm going to try and do it all in one, because there is a dark doorway in here too, which I really like, and I don't know why I can't get that in. So let's place that in a shadow. Let's run the shadow up under there, although that's going to be in shadow anyway. Yeah, funny sunlight on this scene. I'm going to leave a few sticks there. There's a stick there. All right. Now, straight away into some stiff paint. All right. So let's get straight in to some stiff ultramarine, quite stiff, some stiff burnt. All right, very stiff. And let's drop some good darks into here. We have a nice dark under there. Wow. And then we've got a lovely doorway there. Oh, that's painting. See that? That's the way you should paint. One mark, look. And put some little tiles and things on there. So that's a good wash, that. That's really a half decent wash. I've done it in an age. Now that's on. I could stop and let you have a pop of that again. But then we'd be in a bit... Is there anything else I can do while that's hovering about there? Do you know, I don't think there is. Because I need that to dry. Because I want to get this thing stated. So I think we're going to have to pause again while you dash that little wash in. And then we'll get this big wash in here, which will make a big difference to this painting. Okay, now we've got all we hope the little bits done and in, and we need to start making a big difference. Second wash here, and there's going to be bits of third, I think, for some of the darker parts of it. If I can suggest some of it wet and wet. Is which way to go for this, because the sunlight is very strange. It's coming from the back, which means this is in shade and this is in shade. But we can still see a line. So do I need to paint a lighter glaze over it and then redarken it? Or do I just shadow the whole thing and then very delicately with the third wash try and establish that line? I think at the moment I want to get this big shape in, because this is what the thing is. This is how it reads. And there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to start my travel from up here and come right the way down through. Okay? So I'm probably going to use a warmer shadow here, which is going to be violet, bit of raw sienna. And then when I come to here, I'll up the blue content of that, I think, to sort of pull it down. And we've got lovely little lighter stones showing. You know, so really, yeah, really that should be a third wash. So let's do this properly. Let's come down here with shadow. Dog's going now. Let's come down here with shadow, and then let's give this a lightish glaze down to represent the sort of lighter bricks and everything. And then we've got to glaze this again and do the darks. Now that in theory is 4 applications, so it makes me scared. Is there a way around it? I don't know on such a scene as this. It's a subtle scene. What you're going to have to do is be very dulcet in the way that you lay your washes. There must be no fiddling, no scribbling, you know. And in fact, I may change from a sable to a mop type squirrel thing to lay the wash, to keep it nice and soft. So let's go. We know that this is darker than this as well on the tower, if you look at the reference. So I'm intending to put another wash on this. What does it mean? Don't go too heavy too soon. Don't go too dark and too strong. All right. So let's get my puddles ready. So it's very subtle, this one. It's turned into a bit of an exam, because it's a lovely scene that demands a bit of subtlety. That stonework is so beautiful. I've got that in. A little bit of thing in this. That's the shadow for the tower. Right? And I'll probably take this out now and I'll put a more of a bluer thing in there for the building. But it's not going to be the final one, remember. What we're putting on now in the building is going to resemble the lighter blocks and elements. Let's go with this lovely soft brush and see what I get. It's too strong and to my eye anyway, too raw cyanurish. I want it more violet. So a lot of water on there, and let's go there. This plunges this now into shadow. I can put it over the stronger shadow side too. And it should still be thin enough to be transparent. That's the idea. Yeah, you can see that sienna coming through there. And this lovely soft brush. And the fact that I'm passing through very, very rapidly, and only you try to use one brush mark, means that it should not lift the colour underneath, and it should stay relatively clean. There, bring that down. Right. See, I've got to shadowize that. I put some shadows under the things, but that pulls that into thing. Next mix now is going to be more of a cerulean mix, quite pale. And to grey it off a little bit, ever so slightly, I put a little touch. That was the slightest touch, wasn't it? The slightest touch of burnt sienna with it. Let's go all over this, I think. That's quite dark. Because I said I do want another wash after this. So more water in my puddle. And let's drift this down, leaving a tiny gap there. Let's come down again. I've added more water, by the way. I really want this to be quite a pale wash. See, that's more like it. Just enough to throw things into shadow and giving me enough leeway to place another wash on. I'm going to put a little bit more warmth into that. There. All the way through. I can do this rather quickly because it's just covering the whole shaboodle. That's a nice word, isn't it? Shaboodle. See what's happening? It's bringing the whole thing down, but it's not so dark that we can't get another wash on here. And you can see the underwash coming through there quite nicely. I think I'll leave... I can't. Hang on. I won't be long now. Let's cut around this post. And let's bring it through the shadow on the floor. Then a nice rich brush. Here we go. Because that's going to lift. If anything's going to lift, it's going to be that. Drop it down here, restate some of these nice posts. And what happens now is before that dries, I think I'm going to put in some of the dark gutters with my strong ultramarine, strong burnt sienna, more ultramarine, come on. Let's try that. Let's try and run some of these gutter edges in. There. I could put some of the darker windows in as well, and I think I will try that. There, just try window. One. There's another little dark down here. We don't have to be too fussed on them. And in fact, I don't want them all to be the same type of thing. I'm happy with that. Alright, so that's, don't forget now, this is going darker. That's why this looks very dominant at the moment. That's going a bit darker. And that's ready once it dries for another series of sort of half washes, okay? But we need to let that dry first. So we're ready now to really start applying the shadows. As dry as I can get it. This is going to be tricky. I've got such a loading of a wash on here. So let's just see what I can do with this. I'm going to use basically a violet. Again, just to chase the final shadows around this shape. Let's see what we end up with. I'm hoping it's not going to bleed. I'm hoping it's dry enough. It needs to be well dry. There's the roof, which is a thin slither. Down there. It casts a shadow, doesn't it, down there? And I can come under here nicely. And this should give this now form, shouldn't it? Under there. Trying not to play with the shape too much. It comes down up against this back edge there. There's a lovely little line coming across here, which adds a bit of detail too. I think I'll do the bell tower thing last. It picks up, doesn't it, on this other molding here and runs under and across. All right, and then it goes down here. There's a really dark slot here, which I can start there, and then I can add a damp brush to let it go. All right. Now I will, if you'll allow me, travel down through this shape. Right. I use the same wash that I had before, I think, just about, right? Well, that's good, so I can back off you. So I'm going to use the same type of wash. Doesn't have to be too strong, but what I mustn't do is fiddle a lot. I must travel through the shape and make the marks I want to make. So it's basically about leaving negative forms. So let's have a look. Looking at what we've got there, I can bring this down. See? We've got a nice block there. We've got some nice blocks under here. And you can't do this exactly. So just, I say this a lot, don't I? What we're actually into is pattern. Right? There's another light block. There's loads of light blocks on the side here. So I'm going to get some sort of water now and just dissolve these blocks away, see? And then I'll pick up the mix again, you'll find. Right? There's some blocks. Now let's pick up the mix again in here, because it's quite dark there. We got a block there. We can have a little block there. And it's just about getting this to look. So I'm going to go through most of it, as you can imagine, all right? I've got the option now. I'm going in to some of this greenery too. And I can just do that again. All right. Get myself some more. And it's mainly a violet and a blue. And I can come straight through that because it's going to be a door. So it is hard not to get bogged down in this. And it's mainly the sort of coin stones and bits. That's a window as well, I think, that I want to be leaving, all right? So we can safely say, I suppose, that 99% of this is going to be covered, see? Right, inside here it's darker, but I'm going across now, across to this because it's warmer. Then I'll come back across to that. So let's go into here for that warmer dark. And there is a lovely little lintel that I can cut through at this time there. And that's about the end of the warm. So I can come down here. And this is virtually a full wash, I think, in here. Take it down there. And of course I want to take this across the floor there. Right, let's get out onto this last wall, which is very light up here. I'm just putting water. That's water. And I'm starting the wash below the water. And this is a little bit different. That needs to be grayed off a bit more. So I'm starting the wash there. It's coming through here. And I will leave myself some stones, even though I can't see many here, but I'll let go that a little bit. So you can see how little we've sort of left, all right? And then coming down, it seems to warm again. So I go back into the other wash because it's quite warm there. And you can see what I get. Just these subtle changes and movements within, all right? I can always leave a few blocks there, but they've got to be perspectivized. They've got to go upwards a bit. So a tricky wash this, you'll have gathered. And let's just fold this now down up against that one. There. Ooh, and I like this. This has got a lot of nice, lovely blocks on it. Lovely blocks on this. So I can really sort of design these. As I come away, there, going a lot like that to there. So tricky wash this because it's bags of bugger all really, isn't it? It's just little bits of this and that. And finally, I'm going to go really nice and pale. A bit too pale, eh? I'll go darker here. And add water as I come forward because I want to keep this sort of edge there a bit. So I'll just do that. So it's this impression we're after of detail. All right. And of course, that's not going to read. That's not going to read until we get some of the doorways, etc., placed into it. But it's a big wash, as I said, a tricky one. But once that's in, we're nearly on our way home. So here it is, as it stands. It needs now some attention to detail, doesn't it? So we need to start detailing certain areas up. Let's start on the left and then we can work across. We've got half hour left, so it's going to have to move a little bit, but we should be fine. We only need to suggest certain details in this building. It's a side building, it's not critical. I've actually reduced it as well from its original size, all right? I want to get a dark under the eave and then I want to get a shadow. So I'll go in with my burnt and my blue, my ultramarine of course, for a dark. There. And I can place that underneath there. That's casting quite a nice long shadow down this wall. And it's straight, but I'm going to slant it for readability. All right, to make it there. There's that shadow off the wall there. I'm therefore going to ignore those top two windows because it doesn't suit my means. And with the burnt sienna and the blue, I'm going to suggest the top of some windows. Be aware you've got perspective there. So as you come down, they should slope slightly more horizontal. And if a person's that high, they'd be level there. So they should all slope downwards slightly, but to less of a degree. So let's go. I only need to place one, I think, anyway. So I'll place that one down there. And I'll place that one down there. And I'll place a small one, a little bit more level down there. Then I sort of rinse the brush And before they can dry, I want to extend them down. And what I'm hoping this is going to do, of course, is allow the bottoms of them to fade away. See? I should, of course, the more astute amongst you will be saying I should have changed the colour of some of these. They're a bit samey. I'm going to put some windowsills in as well, just to sort of try and get some semblance of difference here. It's very much quite boring, that, isn't it? So there's that. I just need to come across a bit, have a look what else I can put in here. There is various things here. I mean, just put shapes in. Look, I can just put a shadow up against there. There's some kind of electrical box or something, but for me it'll just be a shadow to break the shape up. I'm just trying to zoom you a little bit to break the shape up. There. There's a lovely post here which we can place there, and I can place this, of course, to show me the shadow running across there. And then I want a very stiff dark that I can slide in down there. Not dark enough. So let's go in, burnt sienna blue. Little staccato things are starting to come in now as well, little darkest darks. Slide it down there. That's nice. Right, let's go back up in and start with these details then. Let's place this cross dark on top there. I'm going to put a little bit of dark, broken though, broken under there. Then I'm going to rinse the rest of it off, and I'm going to continue because I didn't want this to be a black line. And now look, it's got lots of nice different weight on it. Back into a good burnt sienna dark, and I can come into the bell tower. A bit stiffer, I think I want that actually. That's why I'm hesitating. It was a bit...
Can you drop the picture down? Oh, thank you.
Just spotted it. It was a bit too damp. This is the dilemma, you see, with zooming you. Right, there it is, down there. I can take this, can't I, straight in to the sort of bell shape that I've got. Although the bell shape appears slightly more blue. They really are lovely little places, these, aren't they? That'll do. There, re-strengthen that. I am going to re-strengthen that and that. And I may even bring some bits just to give apparent detail through there. See, it's all just apparent, isn't it? So I've done the windows. I've come across up to there. I'll do the roof line, and then I'll step down into this final building, and that should just about complete this. The roof line bit here is relatively straightforward. I'm hoping this will be fine enough to get this in. Yep. There. Bit of calligraphy. We've got a lovely little circular pipe thing that drops down onto there. Okay. While I'm passing through, I'm thinking that this looks quite bare, so I'm going to put things like a sill on there, right? I'll re-strengthen this lovely little thing across there. I'm going to put a few little end blocks on that just in here. All right. The other thing I need, and I can use the same sort of violet mix for it, is a semblance of the pan tile roof in the sun that comes down here. I think it's important to do it this way rather than straight lines, because they're broken, aren't they? There, there, re-strengthen that, and there's that. And then finally, this dark chimney here, there is actually another lovely little vertical going up here, a little aerial or something. I think the key is to make them broken like that, you see? See how quickly that was put in with the little breaks on it? I've got some nice dark paint here, so I'll just draw this there. And then I'll lighten it with a bit of burnt sienna, and I can put the top on it and the base there. And it just busies up that roof line. I can even darken some of these, I think, if they're still wet. I'm going to put another little bump up there, just to busy up, as I said, the roof line. I'm looking at that now, and I'm thinking, is it too dark? Yes, I'm going to lift a little bit of it off. And that. So we're starting to go in with some darks and details. See what's happened? We've registered this. That could be a lot darker actually, so I'm going to go in. It doesn't matter if it's dry or not, because this is going to be really strong paint. And of course we can put the strong paint anywhere. So let's strike that in. Ooh, too strong. A bit of liquid on it would help. There. That can be quite strong. So what we've done, we've registered the windows across the roof line, then down through the tower, out across the roof. And when you have done that, we can go into the main body here, and it should be one more pass through, and this should be complete. So I'll give you a little bit of time to finish all that little amount of detail that we've put in now. Okay, so this is where we stand. We now need to put some details into the building, and it occurred to me that when we left these marks as negative, that another way to be able to put the blocks in may have been, let's try it, may have been to be able to lift the blocks, you know? Let's take a look. You know, could we actually have lifted some blocks out on this paper? This is the Canson Heritage paper. See, that's not bad. It's come out. Let's try another one here. Scribble, 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 scribble. Lift. Yeah, and that's nice and soft, isn't it? Anyway, they're a bit more complementary. Let's try another one just to see. They're a bit more complementary than the staccato. That hasn't gone so well. I don't know if you can see anything. Anyway, that's as may be. Let's put in now some of the final marks to detail up this building. And that's what's going to make it read, we hope. I'm just put doors and things in. A little glaze here of raw umber in here for this door. On it goes. And down. Steps we'll have there, so I'll stop it short. Okay, and it does sort of disappear into the darkness there. So my blue and burnt sienna are coming in, or I can use blue and the umber. And I really want to get some dark up there. And then I can fade this down into a dark. Fade it away, the dampest brush, down along the street. There. That'll do for that. We've got a darkish window, door type thing. Quite strongly dark up under here, which I can suggest again with fairly strong paint, and I'll dissolve that off after. But I've also got a door. I'm going to put a fancy door in here because I've moved this across a bit. I'd better dissolve that before it dries. And I'm dissolving, of course, with a damp brush, not with a wet brush. And in fact, that brush was too dry. Can you see it's lifted paint? All right, you got to gauge it. It's such a subtle process. I'm going in with some more raw raw umber, not raw sienna, raw umber. And I'm touching some violet into it. Paints are drying a little bit now, that's always a nuisance. And then I'm going to give myself some largest doors here. I'm going to change that by adding some raw sienna to it. Always looking for chopping and changing. Creates interest for the eye, doesn't it? And I'll leave that go around there. For some reason someone's put a box or something there, I don't know. Then I can give myself a nice little dark arch around there. And then with more blue on the brush, and these are your choices to make, you don't have to copy exactly what I'm doing, of course. I'm going to put a nice little sort of window in there, quite a dark window, fancy window, see? We'll have a fancy little fan, a fan window. When I was in Tuscany, I saw a lot of these lovely little sort of windows like this, and I sort of take these little motifs on board, you know. They really are nice little things, and they add. So there's that, see? That little, that's nice, that, isn't it? Little window motif. There's not much more. I'm going to try and go into a dark, dark, dark green. And it's hard because my green is now bone dry. I'm scrubbing away here, and it's doing me no good whatsoever. Yep, here it comes. We got some sense to the green. And I just want to put some bits of green in here. Right? And I can also put some bits of green when I'm at it down here. I'm going to dissolve these, alright? So relax, they're not going to be this hard edged. And I'm going to rinse the brush again, get some water, and most of this with a cleaning the brush all the time, because every time I do that I'm picking up paint as well, so it's important to sort of rinse it after, see? And I can bring that down through there, let those go. I'm going to get a little bit of dark, and I can just track this down, this plant there. Right, that door still isn't dry, and it's a shame, but I'm going to put a very strong dark into that door now because it's gone a bit flat for me. So what does it mean? It's still damp, so it means I've got to have fairly stiff paint. Too much water on the brush, remember, is going to cause me a run back. So I'm just going to give myself a nice dark there, right, a real nice dark coming down there, under that door. I can do the same here. I'm not frightened because this paint is pretty strong, you know. There. I'd still think that this needs something. It was a little bit barren, so I'm going to put some hard edges in here like that. All right, and I'll put another one perhaps in here. Not much, as you see, just to suggest. And again, I'll pull them down to let them go, let them disappear. There we are. All right. Now, two more things for me to do. That sort of changed the way that looks, isn't it? I want to bring a shadow more pronounced here to form these bars. So let's get some violet and some of the raw sienna, but more violet. Okay. And let's bring the shadow out from down here. More blue, I think that needs, because it's looking less grey than that. So I'm putting some cerulean in with it. All right, and what I want to do is just get these posts isolated there. Look, see? Oh, I can just suggest them, and I can flow this now across down here whilst suggesting some negative posts. We don't want them as routine and regular as that. And as I come away, I can add a bit of water, getting lighter, and I'm going to leave that be just to break up the foreground. Even the top of this, I might just let it go, right? Just to break that up. I think looking at that, this isn't supported, so I now need a little bit more green here. See, I'm pushing and rushing myself now, so I'm getting into a bit of trouble. That'll do. Right, I want to just soften that, because it's got to be all apparent detail in there. You can't put too much sort of detail in there, you know. And what I think I will do for you in the last few minutes is, I suppose, come on, where are you? I suppose we should pay homage. There was some greenery interjecting from the sides, and it does help to break this regular sort of thing up, doesn't it? So I just want to put some darkish greenery. I've mixed the green, and I'm just going to try, whereby, not too much, but I want it to staccato some of this little greenery in. Ooh, it's a risky one, isn't it? It's falling. So I'll come through here and we'll fall through there. Right? Nice little brush, this sword liner. And I can just do that. And I can put some more up here. And it just gives an impression that there's a tangle of stuff up and out here. Now, you can watch me do this and you might decide, hang on, that's a disaster. Up to you. But it's just worth trying, just to, you know, because this side is all sort of, you know, all hard edged everywhere, and I'm liking breaking these up. And this brush is quite random, so it creates some nice marks. I'm going to put a full on bit there. Big risky thing to do, but I mean, good, you know, I'm amongst friends now. Let's come through there. Right, just chaos over the side there. The thing is, if it doesn't and didn't work, then you've just got to paint it again. Now, let's dissolve. There. Let's get some good darks, burnt sienna and blue. Burnt sienna, blue. And let's try and add some depth into this here and there. There. This would be really nice and dark because it is against the sky. Right, and it dark in there. There. Dark's behind here. Which I should, I suppose, soften off. Little darks in here. And maybe some little calligraphy just around some of these. Anyway, I have been too long. I'll leave this on for you to finish this. There we go. Now, let's take the tape off. See what we've ended up with. There it is. So that was a hard fought piece of work, but I've handled those washes reasonably well. They're very crisp and very clean, which I'm quite pleased with. All right. And those are your sort of final marks of this little Tuscan scene.